Hi, everyone, welcome to Style 3D channel. In this video, you will learn how to create a 3D album or brochure. The main points include how to create a 3D album with various materials and how to incorporating trims into the album. So let's get started. First, use the rectangle tool to draw the paper. Width, 21 centimeters, height, 29.7 centimeters. Next, we use the numeric keys on the keyboard to quickly adjust the viewing angle. This allows for a more precise adjustment of objects in the 3D view. Holding down Shift and dragging the coordinate axis allows you to rotate the object in multiples of 45 degrees, providing a more controlled rotation. Right-clicking the mouse to open the menu and selecting Move to Ground will relocate the object to the ground level. Pressing the 5 key on the numeric keypad will switch to the top view. Adjust using the coordinate axis. In this way, the object in the 3D view won't experience any displacement along the Z-axis. Freeze the middle section of the pattern. Import the OBJ file. Select Open as prop file. The cylindrical tube serves as an aid in creating the effect of flipping pages in the paper. We duplicate several copies of this cylindrical tube. By arranging the positions of the cylindrical tubes, we can control the simulation effect of the paper. In this lesson, we primarily learned to adjust the viewing angle by pressing the numeric keys on the keyboard. This ensures that the objects in the 3D viewport remain straight and aligned, avoiding any distortion caused by our adjustments. Use the segment sewing tool to stitch the paper onto the spine in the middle. After sewing, we notice that the particle distance is a bit large. We can decrease the particle distance. Add strengthen to the book pages. Press the spacebar to start the simulation. Use the left mouse button to drag and adjust the book pages. You can see that the current pages already have a simulated flipping effect. We select the cylindrical tubes. Adjust the placement of the cylindrical tubes. You can see that the current state of the paper looks quite natural now. Let's duplicate another sheet of paper. Arrange the positions of the patterns in the 2D pattern window neatly. Perform the sewing operation. You can see that the flipping effect of the book pages is now roughly evident. Perform the freezing operation on the book pages. Its purpose is to prevent the already shaped book pages from deforming during subsequent adjustments. Let's duplicate another set of pattern pieces for the book pages. Similarly, use the numeric keys on the keyboard to adjust the viewport. Ensure that the positions of the pattern pieces do not shift when we move them. Continue duplicating new pages. Pressing the 2 key on the numeric keypad allows for a quick view of all pattern pieces in the 3D view. Sew the pages onto the spine. When paper touches paper, you can use the extra collision thickness option. Adjusting the extra collision thickness can enlarge or reduce the gaps between pages. This is a crucial setting when creating books. Different values present different simulation effects. Adjust the pages while simulation is active to create a natural form for the book. Continue duplicating new pages. Hold down the 2 key and use the coordinate axis to move the pages. The sewing process will expedite the handling. Enable simulation and adjust the state during the sewing process. When creating a book, it's important not to rush. Each page needs to be adjusted individually. Set the extra collision thickness to 1. When creating a book, smaller particle distance doesn't necessarily mean a better effect. Specific adjustments depend on your visuals. While simulation is active, adjust the pages to a naturally open state. Once you feel the form is suitable, freeze the pages to prevent deformation in subsequent operations. Freeze all the pages. Duplicate new paper pattern pieces. Follow the same procedure as before. Press the 2 key on the numeric keypad and make adjustments. In the following steps, if you feel that the pages are too close together and lack realism, you can optimize the effect by adjusting the value of the additional simulation thickness. What we are doing now is fine-tuning the effect. Freeze the last sheet of paper. Follow the same steps as before. After adjusting and achieving a satisfactory result, you can freeze all the pattern pieces. Modify the color of the book pages. Next, let's add materials to the book. You can choose a material like plush fabric. Let's start by adding a fabric material to see the effect. If it's not suitable later, we can make further modifications. Import the fabric material into the workspace and apply it to all pattern pieces. Next, we will add patterns. When adding patterns, for the top layer of pages, we need to add 2 instances of each pattern. This way, adjusting one pattern won't affect the other. For the lower layers of pages, you can import a pattern and repeat the addition because they are not visible due to being covered. We can see that the back of the paper is patternless. At this point, you can change the pattern layout to both so that both sides of the paper have patterns. Select all pattern pieces and modify the fabric pattern. The current fabric is not suitable. In the search bar, look for 365 and add this fabric. We can see that the texture of this fabric is more suitable. Next, we will change the color of the fabric to better match the natural color of our paper. After adjusting the color, we can modify the texture of the paper, that is, the fabric texture, to make it look more like paper. Adjust the values a bit. Increase the intensity of the normal map. Assign numbers to the patterns. Change the rendering type of the top pattern to digital_print and add thickness. Next, we can start the simulation to see the effect. If it looks good, we can proceed to the next step. The effect looks great. Next, to ensure that the created book is more realistic, we need to add thickness. We'll use the Extra Render Thickness option to add thickness. Adjusting the value for extra render thickness will make the pages of the book thicker, aiming to achieve a more realistic book effect. Set the alpha of the bottom cylinder to 0. Reduce the alpha of the patterns to achieve a balanced feeling. Render the scene and observe the rendering results. Increase the texture value of the displacement map to achieve a more realistic effect. Next, we will add decal edges to the book. Start by using the rectangle tool to draw a few patterns. Next, we will add texture to these patterns. Add a new fabric. Apply the texture to the fabric. The added texture needs to be in PNG format, meaning an image with a transparent background. This way, the fabric will have a transparent effect. Adjust the texture to the appropriate position. Adjust the 3D view by pressing the numeric keys. This ensures that the pattern adjusted in the 3D view won't be skewed. Once it's in the right position, you can start sewing. Use the segment sewing tool for the sewing process. Click on Simulate to check the status. If the status is OK, proceed with color and size adjustments. Reduce the size of the decal edges. Freeze the two unused patterns. Duplicate the decal edge and move it to the appropriate position. Sew it in place. The sewing positions can be adjusted according to our needs. Try not to place them in the same position to achieve a realistic effect. The process on the right side is similar. We will speed up the video. To quickly move the pattern to the appropriate position in the 3D view, we can use the keyboard shortcuts Ctrl+ left bracket or Ctrl+ right bracket. This shortcut will swiftly move the pattern to the sewing location in the 3D view. The process is the same. Start by adding a texture, adjust the direction of the texture in the 2D view, then resize the texture. Once the adjustments are complete, use the same method to sew it onto the edge of the book. The arrangement of sewing positions can be changed according to your needs, mainly to ensure the natural state of the book. We'll speed up the next process. Click on Simulate. Unfreeze. Simulate again. You can see that the simulation of the book is error-free. Overall, it looks natural and aesthetically pleasing. Next, continue with the other side. Repeat the steps mentioned above. Start by adjusting the texture position. Here, the texture is too small because we didn't unlock it. Flip the texture so that it matches up. Repeat the previous steps. Set the alpha of the previous cylinders to 100%. Reposition them to make the paper look more natural. Because the paper is thicker now due to the extra collision thickness, if we don't leave more space, it will look awkward. Duplicate small pattern pieces, and sew them one by one. Adjust the sewing positions as needed. Click on Simulate to check the status. Next, change the color of the decal edges to make them more closely match the color of the book. Here, we can see that the pages are too close together. We can add extra collision thickness to create some space between the pages. Another method is to drag and stretch the pages while in simulation mode, which can achieve the same effect. Using this method, you can also create a more natural flipping effect. Adjust the cylinders for subtle refinements in the state. This step can be customized according to your preferences. Next, let's adjust the edge properties of the pattern pieces. This can make the pages look less cumbersome, and the side view will appear more natural. The final step in the creation process is mostly about refining the form. Different numerical values will yield different effects, so feel free to experiment. Lower the alpha of all cylinders again. Select all patterns and freeze them. Next, open the render window. Adjust it to a suitable position for rendering. Now the book creation process is complete. Next, we create a photo frame. The process of creating a photo frame is generally similar to the one we used for the book earlier. First, use the rectangle tool to draw the paper of the photo frame. Then, press the numeric keys on the keyboard to adjust the view. Use the coordinate axis to adjust the position of the pattern. This ensures that the paper in the 3D interface remains horizontal. Use the pen tool to draw a central line on the small pattern in the middle. Use the rectangle tool to draw a box in the middle pattern as an internal line. Make sure it is evenly spaced on both sides. Use the outline contour tool to outline the box into a pattern and move it out. This will serve as the external component of our photo frame. Before moving, use the Smooth Curve tool to smooth the corners. Set the value to 0.5. Next, use the Traces pattern feature to outline it as a pattern. Draw a central line in this outlined pattern. Use the Add Point tool to add 10 points. The points serve as markers to segment the pattern. This step is crucial. We'll use these markers later. Use the sewing tool to sew them together. Hold down Shift to rotate all patterns. Click Move to ground. Freeze the bottom pattern. Click on Simulate. You can see that the top pattern is sewn. Next, change its render type to metal. We can see there's a slight issue during simulation. Now, adjust its extra render thickness and extra collision thickness. Press the numeric key 5 for adjustment. Align it vertically. Use the segment sewing tool for sewing. To ensure the neatness of the paper during sewing, you can use the coordinate axis for translation. Open Show Internal Line so that you can see the internal lines in the 3D view. Import the prepared circular ring. Click Add as Prop. Place the circular ring where you want it. When placing the ring, be sure to press the numeric keys on the keyboard to adjust the view. This ensures that the orientation of the ring remains consistent with the paper. In the subsequent steps, when duplicating the ring, it will be less likely to deviate. Press the numeric key 4 and use the coordinate axis to move. The movement position is where we just drew the line. Switch to the front view, and you can see that the circular ring is penetrating the model. This is because the thickness of the bottom pattern is too small. Next, we can add thickness to the pattern to cover the circular ring. Different numerical values yield different effects. Feel free to make multiple adjustments. Unfreeze, and you can see that the thickness of the pattern is uneven. Increase the extra simulation thickness. Click on Simulate. Now you can see a more natural state. Freeze the pattern. Press 2 to adjust the front view. Make sure the circular ring is vertical to the ground. When adjusting the ring, align the gap with the top to ensure the authenticity of the photo frame. Press the numeric key 4 to adjust the view. Duplicate the circular ring. When duplicating, you don't need to observe its orientation, just pay attention to the height. This is because when duplicating along the coordinate axis, all other coordinate information remains consistent, making it more convenient. Press 2, and you can see that the circular rings are added beautifully. If there are any small imperfections, you can use the coordinate axis to make adjustments. Now the circular rings are added. Next, use the Smooth Curve tool to smooth the corners of the circular pattern. Reduce the particle distance so that the corners will be more rounded and not have a rigid feel. Use the Rectangle tool to draw a rectangle inside the pattern. This rectangle represents the paper in our photo album. For now, you can leave the left pattern as is. You can delete it. First, adjust the right pattern. Use the Trace tool to outline it as a pattern. Continue drawing a rectangle inside the outlined pattern. This rectangle will serve as the space for placing a photo. Additionally, we'll add top stitching on this rectangle to create a realistic photo album effect. Keep the top and bottom of the pattern consistent. Next, we will add top stitching on top of this pattern. Adjust its position to the top. Add top stitching to see the effect. You can see that the top stitching is very small. Click on the top stitching to set it. Change its data to make it larger and more realistic. Different data will yield different effects, so feel free to experiment. This effect looks more natural. You can add more top stitching. You can see that the top stitching distinguishes the position of the photo frame. Extend the edges. Add a point 1 cm away from the edge. You can also add a point at a distance of 2 cm. The purpose of this line is to create the effect of tearable photo paper. We will also add top stitching on this line. Change the render type to metal and reduce the alpha. This will give it a plastic reflective feel. Adjust the direction and move it to the appropriate position. If the position is correct, you can change the color to make it more distinguishable. Duplicate the other side and place it in the same way. Next, duplicate more patterns and add them one by one. Press the numeric direction key 2 to ensure that there is no x-axis displacement while moving the patterns. This makes adjustments fast and accurate. Change the color back to the original. For easier adjustment, separate the patterns in the 2D window. Add a new material to the pattern cut out from the middle. Adjust the color of the cover to present a plastic texture. Now you can see the general appearance of the photo frame has been created. Next, you just need to make adjustments to the data. Here, you can see that due to the reduced transparency, we can see the top stitching from the top. In this situation, you can open real-time rendering lights. Find ambient rendering and enable it. Next, we add patterns. The adjustment of patterns is similar to the process of making a book. Add them to the first page. Use the Adjust Pattern tool to adjust the orientation and size. Ensure it looks real, natural, and aesthetically pleasing. Add images one by one. The steps are the same. We will accelerate the video. Modify the color of the paper. Now, the overall structure is complete. Next, open rendering. Adjust the rendering settings. Change the image size to A4. Set the orientation to horizontal. Adjust to a suitable angle and start rendering. This way, the photo frame is completed. That's it guys, and I hope some of the tips will help your modeling work. If you like what we do, please liking, commenting and sharing this video. Thanks so much for watching and I will see you in next video. Goodbye.